we have our mystery box over here, and there's a little sound that plays with it. So there's the weapon. Hey guys, welcome back to another Big Rook Games tutorial. In this series we are going through and remaking Call of Duty Zombies in Unity 3D with all of the assets made for you, and we are giving you the assets for free. You can use them for whatever you want. And today, finally, we will be putting the mystery box in our scene, and this is what our scene will look like at the end. I'm going to shoot some zombies here so I get some cash on me, and we have our mystery box over here. And there's a little sound that plays with it. So there's the weapon that we will get. And it cycles through 3 or 4 weapons. You can have it cycle through as many weapons as you want, it doesn't matter. In the previous tutorials we actually made the mystery box from scratch. So if you want to see that tutorial, I'll link it in the description. So go check that out. And this is basically what it will look like at the end of this tutorial. So if you find it helpful, make sure to subscribe to us, as we will continue to put out tutorials for this series until we are completely done with the game. This time I will upload the entire file for you to download, so you can download the entire game that we have so far. Let's get back to where we left off last time so I can show you how to implement the mystery box into our scene. So I've already uploaded the file from the mystery box that we created last time. All we have to do now is drag it into our scene. So this is the file that we created last time from scratch. I'm just going to drag it right into our scene. I'll elevate it a little bit. In the game there's some stuff under the box, so probably I will add cinder blocks or something under it. So now we have our box here. The first thing we are going to do is get rid of all the guns that are inside of it. Those were just placeholders at the time, so we're going to add all the guns that we added with our FPS kit when we added that in the 5th or 6th video. And so now I'm just going to drag and drop those into our mystery box. I'm going to go into the resource folder and then the prefabs folder and down to the weapon world models folder. And this has all of our weapons, and I'm just going to drag a few of them into our mystery box. So the AWM, just drag it right into the parent object, and I'm going to delete the other guns that we had before. We don't need those anymore. I'm gonna throw the RPG in there, the SCAR, the shotgun, and the WA-2000. So now we have 5 guns in our mystery box, and we want to drag them into the array that we have into our mystery box parent item. The easiest way to do this is to click on the icon in the inspector tab, the little lock that you see at the top right. Click that so the mystery box window stays up here, and then we can highlight all of our guns and drag them into the guns array. Now we have our 5 guns here in our array. So now we want to position the guns. Some of these weapons are a lot bigger and smaller than they should be. So first we want to position them at the box that we are at. So I'm going to double click on any of the box items. Front lid, I'll double click on that. And then I'm going to click on one of the weapons, go to Game Object up in the menu, and click Move to View. And that'll move it right onto our box. And all of the weapons will be disabled. So to make them show up, just click on the checkmark box by the title, and they will show up. If we put it above it, you can see it's not correctly sized for the box. So I'm just going to change the rotation a little bit and scale it so it looks good with our mystery box there. So now we have it correctly scaled, so when it comes out of the box it will be proportionate and it will look good. So you'll want to do this with all of the weapons. I'll do that quick. I'll just probably fast forward through them. It's the same process, just drag them over to the box, size it until it looks correct, and then you'll be good. So I'll do that now for all the rest of the weapons. Okay, so now we have all of our weapons sized up properly, and we want to do one thing before we start scripting. We want to go into the rigid body and freeze the rotation on all of the guns. This will make sure that when it comes out of the box, it will not rotate on any animation that it might have. So do that on all of the weapons. And it shouldn't have an animation. This just makes sure that it doesn't rotate at all when it's coming up. You also want to click on is kinematic, and this will make sure that nothing affects the rigid body. Like if something were to bump into it, it wouldn't push it. So now that we have all of that done, I am going to open up our mystery box script and add code so that we can pick up the item as the player. So open up the script called mystery box script, and we have our script that we built in the last tutorial. And let's open that up, and I'll zoom in a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is add some variables to our script, and the first two will be bools. We will have can take weapon and a variable I call trigger weapon, which will tell us that we took the weapon and you can't take it again. The next thing we will do is add some variables down here. We will first add a variable for the price, public mystery box price. I'm going to put that for 10 now. And then another variable, public bool show mystery box GUI. And we will have a prompt on the screen to tell the user that he can buy a weapon from the mystery box, and that is the flag that we will use to determine when to show that on the screen. And since we are going to be using GUI elements, we will need a skin for that, so I'm going to add a skin. GUI skin, my skin. And then last, I'm going to add an int for weapon index, and we will use that later. Down in our fixed update, we want to set some of these bools that we just created to false. So can take weapon equals false, so that right when you open the box, the player can't take the weapon, just in case. And trigger weapon equals true. And then down here I'm going to add an else if, and this else if will be else if trigger weapon, and once the if statement gets to the point where it will fall through the timer is greater than 4.0, then we will fall down to this statement, which we can then tell the game that the player can pick up the object because the cycling through the weapons is finished. And that is why we have our trigger weapon, because we want to tell the game that we can pick up the weapon, but we don't want it to be able to pick up the weapon if you've already taken it. So here we will say can take weapon equals true, and trigger weapon equals false. So now when we pick up the weapon, we'll set the can take weapon to false. When it's still in this cycle, it won't change the can take weapon to true because the trigger weapon will be false, and we won't reset that to true until we open the box again from the beginning. So in our public void open mystery box, I am going to set a couple variables here. I'm going to play the animation sound that we have, or the sound for our mystery box. I used the music box sound because there's a music box sound in the original, but we are using our own free assets, so this is a little different. So here I'm going to set our audio clip to box music, which I don't think I defined up here. I didn't. So here I'm going to put public audio clip box music. And then we will drag and drop that into the user interface in Unity from a music clip that you can get in the description. And you can use any sound or music clip that you want. I just found this one to be appropriate for the length of time it takes to cycle through the weapons. And after we assign our audio clip to box music, we will audio.play, which will play the box music audio clip. And for this to work, we have to put an audio component on our mystery box. We'll do that when we jump back into Unity. Let's finish up the script here. So next we're going to add our function that will handle our GUI elements. So here I'm going to add on void on GUI, which will automatically be executed through Unity. And to display things on the screen, we need to define our skin, our GUI skin. So I'm going to create a skin here so that we can use the skin for our display. So GUI.skin equals my skin. And then we need to define a style as well. So GUI style style1 equals my skin dot custom styles, which is an array, and the first item in that array, which is a custom skin, is provided for you. And now I'm going to tell it when to display things on screen. So I'm going to write an if statement, if, and then we have our GUI variable, show mystery box GUI. Then we are going to display content on the screen, or display a message. So here I'm going to put in something that I pulled from a different script that we have. Basically it said press E key to pick up a weapon, but I'm going to use the same message for our mystery box. So when we want to show the mystery box GUI, we will create this label, and I put in press key E to open box, and then I put the mystery box price at the end there. So if you do change it, the message will update properly. And then once the box is open and the gun is up, I want to tell the player that he can take the gun. So I'm going to add another if statement, and it will be the same thing, but we are going to check can take weapon. So if can take weapon, the same thing that we did up there, press key E to take weapon. And both of these are in the style 1 that we defined up here, and that is why we needed that custom style. So that is all we need for our GUI function. And next we need to tell the game when the player is near the box, so we know that he is close enough to buy a weapon and activate the mystery box. And we're going to put a collider on the mystery box that is a trigger, so we will be able to use the function void on trigger stay, I believe it is, void on trigger stay, and we can define a collider that will send us information about the object that is colliding with it. So the only thing that we're worried about here is when the player collides with our collider. So I'm going to put everything in this function inside an if statement, if collide.tag equals player, and that will make sure that nothing else affects this function for our game. So when the enemies collide with the collider, which they will, and this will trigger, but we don't want any of our code to run when anything else collides with it. So that's why we have if collide.tag equals player, then run our code that we have. So the first thing we're going to do is tell it if the box, we have our variable box is open. If box is open, we want to say if box is open is not true, so put that. And then if the box is not open, then we will tell the GUI to show the mystery box GUI. Show mystery box GUI equals true. So if the box is closed and we collide with the collider, then the message will come up on the screen and tell the player that he can buy a gun. And we also need to say if that is not true, then set that to false. And next we need to tell the mystery box to activate if the player presses the use key. So here I'm going to put if input.get key down, and we use the E key. So if we are pressing that key and we have enough money to open the box, which is game management, which is a global variable that we have, .player cash is greater than the mystery box price, which I think we forgot to add that to the top. So up here we forgot to put an int. We forgot to define what type of variable that we were creating, so that's why it did not autocomplete. But down here, if game management.player cash is greater than the mystery box price, and then I'm going to also add if box is not open, which is not box is open, and not open box, which is our variable that we use that we tell it when to open the mystery box. It's more of a trigger, so we have it up here, open box, and then we set it to false. So for that, we want to make sure that the box is not open, and that's a couple frames that probably wouldn't make a difference, but just to be safe, we're going to add that as well. And so now we want to tell it to activate the mystery box. So we are going to say open box equals true, and then we are going to deduct the amount of money it costs from the player cash. So game management dot player cash minus equals mystery box price. And when we do that, the box should open and cycle through the weapons, which we already did in the previous tutorials in our randomized weapon function up here. And now we need to tell it when it's done to pick up the correct weapon that we are showing. We need an if statement that checks if can take weapon, and we are pressing our input key, input.getKeyDown, and then our use key. Then we will tell it how to pick up the weapon. So the first thing, I will need a reference to our weapon manager, because that's what handles all of our weapons, and it handles how we pick up weapons and how it manages which weapons to replace. So I'm going to add a variable here, weapon manager equals, and I'm going to find the object of type weapon manager. Since we only have one, this shouldn't be a problem, this should be fine. And if we go over to our weapon manager and look at what happens when we pick up a weapon, this is part of a piece of code that we modified when we did our wall weapons. So we want the same thing to happen when we're, say, doing our wall weapon purchase. We want the same functionality there. We just want our weapons to swap out for the new weapon. So I'm just going to copy and paste what we had back in that script and put it in our mystery box function. So here we will need to reference our weapon manager in a few places. So type manager dot, and that will reference the one that we just created up here. We do not need to take the cache away because we already paid for it. Add the reference to these. And this line of code right here will tell the game what weapon you currently have and what to replace it with. So we need to reference this for all the variables that are taken from this object. And in the manager.weapons in game, this is what the new weapon will be. And so for this element here, we are going to use the gun index array, which we will define in a little bit, and we have our selected weapon variable. So next, if set element equals 8, this part is for the grenades. We can keep it in here for later if you want to put grenades into the mystery box. I'll leave that up to you. It's the same process as adding weapons, but for the sake of time, I am going to comment that out. And we do not want to destroy the object, the gun object, because it's in the mystery box. So we want the gun to stay in the mystery box. We just want to assign a new weapon to our current weapon. And then we want to disable all of the weapons that are in the mystery box once we pick up a weapon. So when you pick up a weapon, it'll disappear and no weapons will be there. It will appear as the player took the weapon from the box. And we have that up here in our randomized weapon. We disable all of the weapons when we cycle through them. So I'm going to use that same piece of code, and I'm going to take out if it does not equal selected weapon because we don't want any of the weapons to be active. And then guns i.setActive to false for all of our weapons. And when we pick up a weapon, I want to close the lid. So I'm going to call our function close lid, and that should do it. That should be all the functionality that we need to take a weapon from the mystery box. And I'm going to add one more function, another trigger function. So we had void on trigger stay, so when you're inside of that trigger box, it will constantly call this function. Sometimes we will exit the collider box before it runs through at the point where we can tell the mystery box GUI not to show itself. So I'm going to add, just as a failsafe, another function, void on trigger exit. And here we are just going to tell it not to show the mystery box GUI, and we want to tell it not to be able to take a weapon. So again, we need to add our if statement, collide.tag equals player. So other objects will not affect this collider. And make sure all of the words are capitalized. On trigger exit needs to be exactly like it is here for it to function properly. So now if we save our script, let's bring Unity back up. First we need to add a collider to the mystery box. So select the mystery box, add component, and you can type collider. Box collider will come up. You can modify how big the collider is inside of the inspector tab. So I'm going to make the size a little bigger, and I'm going to center it a little in front of the box and make sure it's centered on the x-axis as well. And then we want to click the is trigger option box there, or else our function calls won't work because we called them as triggers. So the next thing we'll do is define our gun index for each weapon. And the way the FPS kit works, in this case, every weapon has its own index, and the easiest way to do this is just to have its own array and put them in real quick. We could reference the weapon index script, but for time we'll just have our own gun index array, and I will put in each of the values for each of the guns, and then you will set the elements 1, 4, 0, 5, 2. And then we want to make sure all of our guns are disabled so we don't see them when we start the game. And our mystery box is the wrong direction, so just rotate it 90 degrees in the y-axis, and then make sure the collider box is set to in front of the box. Since I flipped it around, you will have to change the center on the z-axis to somewhere around -0.6. So if we hit play, we should have a functioning mystery box finally in our scene. So first, get money from killing an enemy, and it will cycle through all the guns. It will stop on a random gun, which we got the sniper. And that is it for this tutorial. We can add more to the mystery box if we want to. I know that there is a beam of light in the game. It would probably look better if we had some particle effects going when the box opened, but that is all we will do for this tutorial. Let us know if you want to add more functionality to the mystery box. We can certainly make it better, but the next tutorial we will be adding a perk finally. So we will have a perk item coming shortly. The first one we'll do is probably the exosuit movements, so the boosts and jumps, but we'll also add everything that you would have in the regular game as well, like Juggernaut. And thanks for watching. If this helped you out, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. We will continue to release these videos for you guys and give you all the assets for free. You can use these however you want. Just download them in the description below. Make sure to catch our next video, and thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.